Hit you with another one of them old phenomenal shits.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Undrlvld. My name is Chris. I appreciate you all being here and for the continued support. Just want to quickly remind everyone that our 500 subscriber giveaway is going on right now. So if you check the description down below or the pinned comment, you'll find a link to Gleam. You go to Gleam, you do the stuff, you get the entries. And in about 2 weeks, one of you lucky people will receive Steam keys for Civilization, Outward, and Warhammer Vermintide 2. Had to think about that. Also, the Sky Raiders of Abrax videos are going to be continuing this week, and I'll be wrapping up the Narador the Withering Worm video series either this week or next week. I'm just going to finish him off and present him to all of you, and then maybe discuss a little bit on the next thing I'll be creating for the channel. With that being said, in this episode of Tal'Dorei Reborn, I'll be going over something I think is pretty interesting. So it seems Matt Mercer has added some rules in the book that allow you to mix ancestries and an additional method to creating tieflings. Now granted, I'm not an expert on Dungeons and Dragons or its lore, so all of this could have been around for ages, but this is certainly the first time I've heard of it. But if it has already been established and I'm just crazy and wasted my time making this video, or if I got anything else wrong, be sure to let me know in the comments down below in a nice way. Okay, in a nice way. So first, we'll take a look at the mixed ancestry section. We learn that the Cobalt Soul is unsure if ancestry is mixed prior to arriving in Tal'Dorei, but it's safe to assume that it happened, and they wonder if the arrival of humans to Tal'Dorei had a heavy impact on that as well. So it appears if a mixed ancestry family has a child, that child will have the traits of each parent. The example given is a human child having patches of scales because one of the parents is a dragonborn. However, they sadly also state that some ancestries can't mix, such as a Goliath and a gnome. Personally, I think that would have been hilarious, but it makes sense nonetheless. Interestingly enough, they also mention that non-humanoid creatures such as dragons that have, magical capability can use their magical ability to procreate a mixed ancestry child. So what I would be curious about is, would that child have traits from the dragon or whatever the dragon turned into? See, I think you could play it either way. So essentially you could do this to maybe get like legendary resistance on your playable character if your DM allows it, of course. Now, moving on to the mixed ancestry statistics section, this is where the meat and potatoes are. It describes how you could go about creating your mixed ancestry character. Basically, you mix and match 1 or 2 racial traits from the parent races. It also warns, obviously, some traits are far more powerful than others, and some are more flavorful or narrative focused. It suggests swapping the same trait types. A narrative trait for another narrative trait, etc. Remember, in the end, the DM has the final say on anything and everything, so make sure you run everything by your DM while you're making your character, and confirm those choices during your session 0. So, for example, an example would be if I wanted to create a character that was a mix of a Dragonborn, Gem Dragonborn, and a Drow Elf. So I would take Gem Flight from the Gem Dragonborn, the ability that allows them to fly, and swap it for Fey Ancestry. I'm not saying that would be the best choice, but it's an example. And then maybe swapping Sunlight Sensitivity from the Drow for Draconic Resistance from the Gem Dragonborn. So as you can see, you could use this to make some very interesting and very powerful combinations. Again, 100% you need to get your DM on board with this, and also be open to the possibility that as the game progresses, your DM might ask you to make some changes for the sake of balance. So, I'm sure you're thinking, hey Chris, you said something about tieflings, and you would be absolutely correct. So let's bring this back around to Critical Role. Obviously, the easy example of these optional rules is Jester from Campaign 2 of Critical Role. Her mother was a tiefling, and her father was a water genasi. She had some tiefling traits and water genasi traits. But let's look at the new example. In the Tiefling section of Tal'Dorei Reborn, there is a subsection called Tiefling Children. Here it states that a humanoid can end up having a tiefling child simply by interacting with a fiend. Now, I'm sure we all know that a humanoid could procreate with a tiefling, and we also know that a fiend is capable of, like cursing your bloodline or whatever, so you can have a tiefling child that way. But in Tal'Dorei Reborn, it introduces the concept that even if not deliberately done by the fiend, just having dealings with a fiend can cause you to have a tiefling child. It's like a side effect, if you will. I think that's interesting, especially with this next part. Also, this apparently happened to Percival and Vex'ahlia de Rollo. Their youngest daughter, Gwendolyn, is actually a tiefling. So perhaps by the optional rules we previously discussed, Gwendolyn would have like human, half-elf, and tiefling traits. Sadly, the book doesn't really give us any more information on Gwendolyn, other than she's a pure-hearted and innocent child. So I think that's interesting because, the book also states that Percy still has, some issues with his past. He's still trying to accept and get over everything that he's been through. So it's kind of like a sucker punch to the gut that he kind of has this reminder in his daughter Gwendolyn that he did succumb to temptation and make a deal with a fiend. So I think that's pretty interesting. It kind of adds an extra layer to his character. But I mean, from what the book's saying, they all love her. Everyone loves Gwendolyn, so everything's good up on that front. I just think it's a very interesting concept. So that's gonna wrap up this episode of Tal'Dorei Reborn. Again, if you want to see anything specific from the book, like you want me to go over a certain class, certain feat, or whatever, just let me know down in the comments below, and I'll see what I can do. But other than that, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. Not really sure how many of these Tal'Dorei Reborn videos I'm gonna make, but hey, if I keep getting views, I'm gonna keep doing it. So everyone, have yourselves a good day, and I'll catch you in the next one.